Hello and welcome to Jazz After Dark. How you doing out there? Oh, it looks a little different today. All right. Well, thanks for joining us here tonight. Can anybody guess what the drink is? It is not a Moscow Mule. It is a Kentucky Mule. Actually used the last of the Kentucky bourbon, Bradshaw bourbon actually. And you mix that in there with some fresh lime juice. And we got some Fever Tree ginger beer. I actually didn't have that. Didn't have that on its own. No bueno. And you have yourself a Kentucky Mule. Actually, the original Moscow Mule, that was actually invented in the 40s to try to sell more vodka. Did you know that? That was one of the first. You got to go back to the 20s to get sort of the first mixed drinks, but that was one of the first where they really went with vodka and said, okay, we're going to try to sell a lot more of this. Nonetheless, that's a Kentucky Mule, and everything is good about it besides this stuff. Ginger beer on its own. That's not very good. Anyways, are you trying to save for your kids' college? Maybe. So in the 90s, 529s were the big deal. You know, that was the focus. There were TV advertisements, and that was it. Get your 529. Here in Florida, they called it the Florida Prepaid 529. And because at the time, the first option was lock in today's college pricing, but, you'll for the future. And so you get to pay per credit hour. Now, your kid turns 18, 15, 18 years from now, you'll pay today's rate, but you'll pay it then. I bet you wish you could go back and do that now, huh? And so that was a big deal. 529s aren't really marketed a whole lot. You notice that? Do you see any commercials for that? Do you get any advertisements? Do you get postcards in the mail? Do you get little ads on the side of your searches and everything online? Not really, no. And that's because people mostly figured out, I don't know if my kid's going to go to school. Now, some families say, yes, you're going to college. You're at least going to try it. If you don't like it, then you can go do what you want. Some families say, whatever guides you in this lifetime, I want you to go do that. So I want to give you a few different examples here today of things that you can do depending on where you land. It's not my job to tell you that doing this is better than this. I just want to share the information with you. And if you're one of our clients, then yes, it is my job to tell you which way you may want to go. But you notice how I never do videos on, you got to pay off your debt, or you got to use debt to build wealth or whatever. Everybody's different. Do what you got to do. It's got to fit what you're trying to do. All right, let's get started. That's very good, actually. Very, very good. It's refreshing. Almost a daytime drink, You want to drink that while you're sitting by the pool. Very light. So let's start with the 529. The first problem that I see, most people think that 529s will limit their child's financial aid qualifications. And that is true, but only to that much extent. It's so small. So if you have a 529 for, say, a 5-year-old, and they get older, and then that last year of high school, they start meeting with their counselor and filling out the FAFSA form, you're worried that this big 529 now is going to limit them. Well, 529s only, think about the number in 529. This is not exact. It fluctuates just ever so slightly. But 5.29% is what is used of the 529 to account for your family's contribution. Now, it's really not. It's like 5.6%, but that's an easy way to remember it. So 5.29%. So if you have $100,000 in this account for whatever reason, $5,290 would be counted towards your family's contribution. In other words, it would reduce your child's financial aid by about that much. Not a big deal. So that's no reason to stay away from a 529, and it's definitely a myth where people think it takes up all the, they're going to count the full amount and they're not going to give my child any aid. That's not the case. Now, there are still two types of 529s. The money does need to be used for college, higher education, or private school when they're younger. You can use it for that if you'd like. That's a recently new law. But in general, it's got to be used for school. Private school, private high school, college, master's degree. You could use it for dorms, books, just anything related to school, really. And you have to keep receipts and such in case you're audited. But if your child doesn't go to school, well, now we have a problem, right? Because if you have one kid and they don't use the 529 or they don't use all of it, well, you got to take the money out and you got to pay a penalty. And it's like, that's stupid. I just saved the money. And so it's not my kid's fault. He didn't want to go to college or whatever. So a lot of people say, I don't know. Now, if you have two kids, not such a big deal. You start one 529, let that kid decide if they're going to go to school. If they do not, you're allowed to change the beneficiary to the second kid. And if that kid does not go to school, well, all right, now there's a new law that allows you to roll it into a Roth for them if you want to, or maybe you go back to school or something, right? But you see what I'm saying? Your options are limited. So the next route that people go is they say, well, I'll start a custodial account for my child. Now, a custodial account is the child's account. It's not your account. You're the parent, but it's the child's account. Anyone can contribute to a custodial account. So I could open one, presumably for if I had a young kid, I could open one for an underage child, really any underage child, doesn't have to be my kid, and I can put $10 into it. Well, grandma could come along and she could put $10 into it. My wife could come along and put $10 into it. My daughter's godfather could come along and put $10 in it. You guys watching felt the kindness in your hearts. You could put money into my daughter's custodial account. My daughter is an adult now, so there is no such custodial account. And so for legal reasons, I do have to tell you, I am not soliciting you to put money into a fake, non-existent custodial account. Cheers to the SEC, right? So, the point being that you can start this, the child has the account and they can accept money from anyone for any reason for it to go into that custodial account. Now, when the child becomes an adult, in most cases, in almost every state, it's 18 years of age, and they're allowed to use that money for anything. Doesn't have to be for college. If they decide to start a business, well, they could use it for that. If they decide to think about it for a while, well, they don't have to use it. It's not forced to come out. It's not penalized if it doesn't come out. If along the way, let's say your child is 5 now, and along the way you find that there are expenses that you'd like to cover for your child, such as a private school or maybe their first car or whatever it is, but they're not quite an adult yet, you as the custodian are allowed to go in and take money out and buy these things so long as it's for the child. You cannot take money out of this account and go on vacation. You cannot take money out of this account and leave your wife and propose to a new woman or man, buy them a diamond ring. Now, your child technically could sue you for that. So the short answer there is we got a 529. That's if we know we're going to actually ask them to go to college and hopefully they're interested and they want to do it. But if that's not the case and you say, well, I don't want to push them to do it, I'll do a custodial account. We can use it for college or any other life expenses that come across as long as they're for the child and everybody can contribute. If the child doesn't use the money in a custodial account, they can continue to invest it. They can move that money into a Roth. They can say, well, let's make it for retirement. Imagine that. If you started one when they're 5 years old, right? And then now they're 65 years old. You do the math on that. It's pretty impressive. So they can do that. They could decide for 10 years they do nothing. And then at the end of the 10th year, well, you know what? I should have went to college. And then they use the money then. Doesn't matter. It's a very flexible account. The deal is that if the child takes the money out at, say, 19 years of age, well, maybe they owned Apple. Apple today is worth whatever. Apple in 15 years, we hope, would be worth more. There's a spread there, and therefore there may be tax. But the thing is, the child probably doesn't have a large tax burden. Remember when you were 18 and you filed your taxes and you could use the 1040 easy, right? So you don't worry so much about tax because the child is essentially going to pay nothing on the money. If there's just a lucky draw and they make so much ungodly amounts of money off of this custodian account, okay, well then they have to pay tax, but it's at their rate, which is probably nowhere near your rate. So, it makes sense. Step number 1, 529. Step number 2 is a custodial account. I would say the one negative there is You can't stop the kid from taking the money. When they become an adult, it is their account. You have no more say in what happens with that money. So something to think about. Now, between now and then, of course, you have final authority of what happens with the money. So raise your kids wisely, because you don't want to hand them a big account. And everybody worries about that, but that's never happened. You know what I mean? We have so many custodial accounts here, and every week somebody turns 18 and we go through that process. These kids are fine. Don't worry about it. People say, I have one client, a doctor actually, he goes, I raised a bunch of brats. And I think he means it, but come on. I've talked to the kids. They're not that bad. At least that's what they're showing me anyways. Two sides to a story, right? All right, and then the third one, I'll make this quick. The third thing you can do, and there's a lot of things you could do, but I'm just covering 3 tonight because got nothing else to do. The third one is using a Roth IRA in your spouse's name for college, for your kid. Think about it this way. I've covered this before. This is not new to some of you. If you have a Roth IRA and a 401k and you're doing great, you're saving enough money for retirement, and you know me, once you save enough, stop it. Quit messing around with that. But you could, if you're married filing jointly, your spouse could have a Roth IRA. But Dustin, I don't need another Roth IRA. We're on track for retirement. Right, but between me and you, we could name the Roth IRA like Sneaky Roth IRA, right? And between me and you, that money in your spouse's Roth IRA is really earmarked for your kid's college. But we're not going to tell the government that, and they're okay with this. We're going to hold it in the Roth, let it grow, make your contributions and everything. And if the child goes to college, you let them go to college and say, we don't have any money. I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to try hard for scholarships and see what grants you can get, any financial aid. Probably don't take out student loans, but we'll help you with that. And when the child finishes or gets close to finishing, whatever debts they have remaining, or maybe to get them through their last semester or whatever, you use the Roth for that. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to take money out of your Roth at any age for higher education for you, your kids, your grandkids, right? Immediate family. You could do that. So what's really popular, and has been for a couple years now, is to tell the child you have no money. Well, the child goes to school in high school and they get their FAFSA form and they ask you, the parent, some information about your assets. Well, Roths don't count as an asset for you. That doesn't count against your family's contribution. So your kid and the government will both see, oh gosh, you weren't lying. You really have no money for me. And then you help them, get what they can. All along, we've got this extra money. You're going to go ahead and just help them out. You're allowed to do that. So step number 1 is a 529, which is really geared towards people who most certainly want their kid to go to college, or they know their kid wants to go. Step 2 is the custodial account. For those of you that are on the fence, you don't know if your child's going to be good with their hands or good with their brain, whatever it is. Maybe there's a different school they want to go to that doesn't get covered under 529 as higher education. And step number 3 is the Roth IRA, the sneaky way of going about it, where you can use that for them and just don't tell them about it and don't tell the government either. So there you go. You learned it here from Jazz Wealth First. Now that's just a couple things you can do. There's a lot of things you can do, but this is where it gets to be specific. I don't know you. There may be something about, maybe you're getting a royalty that I don't know about. And so there's different directions you could go there. Maybe you're already charitably inclined, and so you're gifting money to qualified charities. Well, now there's other doors that open, okay? Maybe you're a partner in a partnership, and there's other doors that open there. So just generally speaking, those are 3 to use for you here tonight. And of course, I'm happy to help. If you think that we can help you, I hope you'll check us out at jazzwealth.com. That's right. Yeah, that's what the shirt says there. And other than that, I just appreciate you guys watching. I'm going to go have some candy now, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Adios.